What is happening, everybody? Welcome to another episode of The Rose Show. My name is Jay. I'm the host for today. Who else but me? Excuse me, somebody just decided to do a little run-in on this. I'm home alone today as I'm recording this, and this is our baby puppy, Zoe. Now, this is Zoe's first time on the show. Hi, honey. And she just decided that she would like to join in. Now, there's some construction going on outside, and she's a little timid right now, so I can't keep her in her cage. Otherwise, she'll freak out. So I have to keep her out, and she just decided she would like to join. So for now, for the time being, while I do this intro, she's going to sit here right here with me because I don't know what else to do, and I have to get this intro recorded as soon as possible. So she's just going to sit here and stare confusingly at what's going on. But my guest today is the one and only Keagan Grimm. Somebody posted this, what was that, a couple weeks ago when I made the announcement that I was going to be doing this episode with Keagan Grimm. Somebody made the comment that it is about time this guy starts getting his flowers, and I completely agree. And not only Keagan's, a lot of underground cats that are coming up are starting to get some flowers thrown their way. And man, it's so cool to see. So let's shout out to all the people out there doing their thing and starting to get some recognition. And I can't let you down because you'll start freaking out. But as you can see, I'm a little tied up at the moment. So I'm going to go ahead and let you guys enjoy this episode. And I know I did. We have I never really know when I'm going into these things what to expect, but to be completely honest, this one blew all my expectations out of the water that I did have. So you're really going to enjoy it. Here's a word from our sponsor, Crazy. Say peace out, Zoe. Later on, y'all, and enjoy this episode coming your way now. All right, everybody, it's time to stop and let you know about today's sponsor of the show, Crazy Martin's in Piqua, Ohio, one of my favorite places in the entire world to go to. Crazy Martin's has provided their customers with quality products for over 20 years, from ashtrays to water pipes and everything in between. Stop in, check out their selection, and of course, check out their pinball machines. With over 20 pins to choose from, there is something for everyone. Crazy since 1996. I don't just say this about every place. I love going to Crazy Martin's. I've always loved going to Crazy Martin's ever since I was of age to go to Crazy Martin's. It's one of my favorite places in the entire world. Me and my wife go there almost every Sunday to play pinball machines. It is one of the funnest spots in Ohio you could possibly find. It is in Piqua, Ohio. Check out their website at www.crazymartins.com. Yo, what is going on, everybody? Welcome to yet another episode of The Rose Show. As always, I am your host, Jay. Who else but me? And today, man, I've got one of the hardest working cats in independent underground music today. I see him on, it feels like every single show flyer I look at anymore. And it's just awesome to see somebody out there, putting the work in, doing the grind like he has been the last few years. He just released an album called Gospel that I've seen nothing but positive reviews about online. And it's actually, I have a playlist on my Spotify account with normally around 60 songs that I keep on a regular rotation. One of those tracks is from that album. It's called Sin, Repent, Repeat. I'm not even kidding you, dude. And you can check the track record. I don't say shit like this unless I mean it. That is one of my favorite tracks today. And it's in the same playlist, like I said, I listen to constantly. So if your plays on that song are up, I'm probably the main cause. He is Keagan Grimm. What is up, my dude?
What's good, man? Good to be able to sit down and talk to you.
Yeah, for sure. We were talking a little bit before we hit record, and I realized that this is actually, we've known each other for probably 4 or 5 years now, probably more than likely, but the atmosphere that we're always in, we've never been able to have like a conversation because whenever we're face to face, it's like, it's go time. You know what I'm saying? So I'm usually busy. You're busy doing your thing. Even though, we've circulated in the same circles for half a decade now almost, we've never had a conversation. So this will be our first convo that you are listening to or watching, regardless of, previous episodes and all that stuff where I seem a little bit more prepared. Might not be as much this time, but we're going to get this one done. So why don't we go ahead and just start at the beginning? Let us all know your background, a little bit about yourself growing up, and just a little bit of the history of you.
All right. I mean, yeah, I don't often talk about myself that like I that's I think the biggest obstacle for me in my whole career is talking about myself and I I've never found a comfortable place where I talk about myself where it doesn't feel like bragging, and I hate
Sure.
that. So like oftentimes I'll just like omit just everything or just let my work speak for myself. But like I had a crazy upbringing, man. Like I spent like my whole teenage years either like on the streets or in jail or uh doing all sorts of craziness. Like I ended up hopping trains and hitchhiking around the country for a while when I was like 18. uh I went around the country finding mischief and shit, trying not to get arrested, failing to not get arrested. There was a time where I didn't have much direction in my life. It was all just kind of unmedicated craziness, just kind of drifting around and
Yeah.
being a problem for everybody else. It wasn't until the last couple of years, I finally uh decided to stop drinking and like really start like focusing on what the fuck I was doing. And like that's been the last 4 years of growth, and it's more than anything I've done in the last 15. So once I finally decided to get somewhat medicated, I've got a pretty extensive history of mental illness. And when I finally decided to get medicated and take myself a little more seriously is when I was able to actually start growing with any type of noticeable difference. You know,
Yeah.
uh, I
Yeah, for
was
sure.
I was saddled to that shit, drinking for damn near 20 years. I was it was just so much time wasted doing, I don't know, what I thought was camaraderie or hanging out with a friend group or whatever. It was just we were all a bunch of just misfits not doing anything with our goddamn lives, and like I had to pull myself out of that in order to like focus on what the fuck I had to do, because like I had some talent in doing this shit, and it was just a matter of like focusing those efforts uh and really using my time more to my advantage instead of just like careening around like a fucking asshole here or there.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And it's funny because I kind of going back to what you started and you said you have a hard time talking about yourself because you feel like it's always, braggadocious whenever you
Yeah,
do stuff like that. And I've found those same hurdles in my personal life when I started doing the show.
yeah,
I people would be like, "Oh man, I really enjoyed this episode." And I would start to like almost talk them out of their opinion and explain to them why it wasn't really that good. And at one point, and I don't want to put anybody on blast, so I won't give the actual episode number, but earlier on in the show, there was one particular that I didn't care for, and multiple people said it was their favorite like to date, and I was like, wow, really? And I found myself wanting to again talk them out of it, but
yeah,
I'm like, you know what, it doesn't matter what I think, what matters is what they think. So
yeah.
giving yourself those kind of props, man, I know it's hard to do, but never sell yourself short on that, especially considering the amount of talent that you have. But so when did you get into underground music? Was it something that was always a part of you? Did it come later in life, or how did that come about?
So I've been, I mean, music's been a giant part of my life ever since I was a kid. Um,
Yeah.
when I was younger, like back in like the 80s and 90s and shit, I would just park myself in front of the TV and watch MTV just nonstop, just any video that they played. I didn't give a shit what it was. I just watch that shit for hours and hours and hours and hours. Uh and like, I started playing instruments when I was a teenager. I started uh my first focus was I was trying to be a metal singer for some time. And that didn't work out mostly because like at the time I was really unreliable. I was drunk and just all over the place. And my life was very unstable. Like sometimes me and my wife would my girlfriend at the time, now my wife, but sometimes we would be sleeping in our car, sleeping at a hotel, like we were unreliable in the sense that like we didn't have a strong foundation, and
Sure.
I didn't have enough willpower to really focus on a musical effort, especially involving like other people you had to coordinate with.
Yeah,
Um,
right.
it was mostly just because I was in this mentality of like I was kind of a hooligan growing up, like because I had to be. I was out there with a crew of street kids. Like we were like either sleeping outside or in abandoned buildings or committing crimes to try and get money to get a hotel or whatever. That was years of my life.
Right.
So it was hard for me to shake that mentality of just being, I don't know, just a general boilerplate hooligan, drunk and aggressive towards everybody. And it wasn't a great way to live, and it certainly wasn't a great state for like collaborating with anybody else.
Yeah.
So as much as I wanted to like, do a metal band type situation, like I wasn't really ready for that. And so I had been rapping a little bit myself. I started writing rhymes and shit in jail because there's really not much to do in there. Um,
Right.
and I linked up with some people in jail, and I was writing lyrics with other people and shit. And I was told I had a pretty good talent about it. And I don't know, I just started pursuing it from there. I found like Tech Nine. One of my buddies showed me Tech Nine, and then like another time, this was a pivotal moment, I think, in me turning more towards like hip hop and things like that. Is I was actually auditioning for a metal band, and during a little bit of downtime, I was just like rapping some shit I had into the microphone. And this was back in I guess the early mid 2010s or 2008s or whatever. It was right before Jedi Mind Tricks, Servants in Heaven, Kings in Hell came out, or right after it came out. And I was rapping on the mic, and somebody goes, "Yo, you ever heard of Jedi Mind Tricks?" I'm like, "No." And they're like, "Well, the dude, you got this raspy voice thing going on, just like the dude from that."
Mm-hmm.
So I downloaded Servants in Heaven, Kings in Hell. I heard Vinny Paz for the first time, and I was like, "Oh shit!" Like he's all gruff like I am, and I definitely like because of finding that I gained a little bit of influence from that for sure.
One of the most underrated MCs to ever walk planet Earth is Vinny Paz.
Yeah,
Lyrically, his flow, everything, man. And oh gosh. If
dude's a
you
monster.
don't know who Vinny Paz is, turn this show off, unsubscribe. You're not a music fan.
Yeah,
Yeah.
dude's a fucking monster. And like I like how recently he's been like singing a little more on his tracks. Like if you
Yeah.
listen to like his last couple albums, in contrast to like the older JMT shit or his solo shit, like he's singing more hooks and like getting more comfortable with melody, and it's like super cool because like that's like it's also the type of shit I do.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Real fast, and we'll get back on track here in a second. But now that you kind of touch that, because I don't get to have this conversation a whole lot with people, so I'm just going to take advantage of it.
yeah.
Why do you think it is Vinny doesn't get as much love as he does? Like we just said, the talent's there, the ability's there, the music is there. You think maybe it's just because the content is a little bit more on the edgier side, perhaps even like for today's standard, he's fearless with what he talks about, and it's very politically
Yeah.
motivated for the most part. Do you think maybe that has something to do with it?
I think a lot of political stuff can, that's a charged issue for a lot of people, and there's everybody on every kind of side of it, and it gets people really emotional. So I think
Yeah,
a lot of times, anytime you're going to touch on politics, you're going to have people who uh, either straight up disagree with you, or
yeah,
just like aren't into that type of subject matter, and like, they're like, okay, there's enough of that shit going on. Why would I want to listen to music about it? That's already shoved in our face 24/7. And sometimes he can kind of tiptoe the line of conspiracy theories and all sorts of shit.
oh
So
yeah,
he, sometimes that type of stuff isn't as palatable to like a mainstream audience, or a broad audience. You're speaking to a unique subset of listeners, I think, when you
right,
delve into that type of subject matter. Um,
yeah,
I I try my best to stay out of any and all political conversations, uh, be it in music or in real life. I'm not interested in it at all.
yeah.
You know,
That's one of the reasons why I have a strict no politic rule on this show,
so
unless like if it's going with the flow of the conversation is something that you kind of have to address, then maybe, but even then I'll try my best to shut it down as fast as possible, or at least try to
yeah,
go from a different route to where I know it's going, because there's no I don't argue with people online. I
yeah,
like it. You before my words leave my mouth, you already decided what you thought.
yeah,
And we don't live in a climate today where my words, more than likely, unless you're an open-minded individual, my words are not going to convince you or anyone else, not you in particular, you know what I mean?
yeah,
You in general. I'm not going to convince anyone what you already think, more than likely. It's not the climate that we're in. And the one thing that I think that our parents' generation has, and this last thing I'll say, and we'll get back, but the one thing that I think our parents' generation had right more than anything else, when I was growing up, it was you do not talk politics, not at the dinner table, not at a party, not with a group of friends.
yeah,
You're who you voted for was secret. It was such a secret that in
yeah.
the Dave Chappelle Killing Him Softly comedy special that he did,
Mhm.
he even made a joke about how, white men won't, they'll tell you about fucking their wife in the ass, but they won't talk about who they voted for. And I think that is, key. And
Yeah,
because your experiences shape what you think the way the country should go. Your
right.
experiences are completely different than my experiences. So obviously, we're going to have some difference of opinions, but there's not enough people in this world who can agree to disagree. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah, people tend to get real emotional about political discourse these days, and it's not something I've ever been interested in particular. And now in recent years, where it's all anybody talks about ever,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
it's it's just that much more exhausting. Because you're right, everybody's got their own little feelies, they're not
Yeah.
gonna change because someone as sound as your argument may be, they've got their heels dug in, and it's not going to matter in the long run. So, yeah, I stay out of those conversations as often as I can.
Yeah. Probably smart. Okay. So let's go ahead and go back. So you got the Jedi Mind Trick CD. You start listening to it. How did Jedi Mind Tricks turn into underground music?
Well, from there, because like I wasn't really real well versed in a lot of like underground stuff. Like I didn't like I wasn't like a juggalo coming up really. Like I had a couple of ICP records and Twisted records and shit. And I enjoyed them. Like Malenko was great, and Riddlebox, like those older ones. But I was never really like that entrenched in the culture, you know what I'm saying?
Sure.
So um what I did was I just kind of reached out online to see what I could find. It started on like the Tech Nine website used to have forums on it. So once I learned about Tech Nine, I figured that out. I got in the forum, started looking around at what else was going on out there. And back then, like I remember like Hobson was in the Tech Nine forums all the time. He would be selling verses and shit for like $50 back then. And then
Wow.
yeah, and then from there I found the horrorcore.com forums, which I mean, anyone in this scene should at least know about that by now. The old
Yeah.
horrorcore.com board, the proving ground. It was ruthless back then. Um, if you dropped a song and it was trash, they would tell you all about yourself.
Right. Right.
They didn't pull no fucking punches on that shit. And in a way, if you're not able to take constructive criticism or extrapolate a constructive criticism from someone talking shit to you, like that shit was sink or swim back then, because like they would roast your ass into oblivion if you sucked.
Right. Yeah.
Which in hindsight, like on one hand, it was pretty brutal, especially for people like who just were trying to figure their way out through this genre of music. It could be a little discouraging to somebody without thick skin, and we all know that sometimes artists aren't the most tolerant of criticism or accepting
Yeah.
of criticism. A lot of people with thin skin come and go. I've seen it over the last 20 years. I've seen hundreds of acts just disappear because of just how much of a goddamn uh journey it is, a uphill fucking battle it is to get any kind of name recognition in this scene.
Yeah.
um
For sure.
so yeah, I mean, from horrorcore.com, I just I linked up with people from there, like people like the J Hex project. I was in like a little collective in South Florida with a couple people like Darby O'Trill, called
Mm.
Scumbag Worldwide. Back in the day, we put out we put out a group album and a mixtape and a couple other things. It was just a few cats from South Florida and a couple people from elsewhere. But yeah, me and Darby came up like in the same, groups back then. And just from there, it just grew and grew. I started teaching myself more things and just figuring things out along the way. So I was down in Florida, like doing shows and things like that, and just wasn't really gaining a lot of traction in Florida. And then I had some, I had a mental breakdown at some point. I lost a few friends, unfortunately, and I was just in a really bad way for a while. And after that, I decided to like go and seek some treatment for my mental health issues finally, um, which then eventually led to us. Once I was able to get my mind right and refocus my energy on shit, we actually were able to hustle up a bit of money, and we bought a house up here in Ohio. Um, so I had known about like AXE and stuff, when I was still living down there, but moving up here, I was like, look, man, like these are motherfuckers doing dope shit around here. Let me holler at these guys and fucking see what kind of fucking collaborative efforts we can put together, what kind of shit we can do for each other. And I mean, from there I just started building, like I started working more than I ever have in my life once I got up here. Just
Mm.
because, like I said, I've never been one for self promotion. I've never been one
Yeah.
to be able to sit down and be like, hey, look at me. Look how great I am. Look at all these great things I can do. I could do great shit for you. Like I've never been able to sell myself in that regard. So I had to really speak with my actions over the last few years by just like grinding the fuck out of everything and like presenting everything in a top notch way, like to the point where it's undeniable what I'm doing. Um,
Yeah.
and then I think linking up with SON a couple years ago, really like also, I found a great comrade in him. Me and him think a
Yes.
lot alike. We hang out a lot and we share ideas and kick ideas back and forth and shit. And he's really opened my eyes to a lot of new ways of thinking. I mean, him. He can go on, but he he drops nuggets of wisdom that are beyond his years sometimes, and I always enjoy the time I get to spend with him. I've learned a lot from him. But I think in really the just everything that I've presented to the people in the last few years is just representative of what I do. Like I consistently deliver good shit, and it gets to the point where it's like it's just that's not even a second thought. Like, yeah, okay, Keegan can do it. Fucking, that's it.
Yeah.
Um, and I just had to drag myself up to this point. Really, like it took way longer than it should have. But when I finally decided to focus my efforts on the right things, is when I started actually seeing success in my endeavors.
Yeah. And I think that's definitely key. And things that a lot of people don't understand, like the amount of people, and I'm sure you're probably the same way too, but the amount of people I know in this area alone who have more talent than anybody I know is in the game right now are just sitting on their couches because they don't want to work for it.
Yeah,
That really is key. You got to put in the work, and that's something that you're very good at doing. And just like you said, and now it's to the point where people know, yeah, Kiki can do it. It's
yeah,
not even a surprise to see your name, like I said, on a show anymore. It's kind of like it's more of a surprise to not see your name, and that hasn't happened in a long time, but to not see your name on the bill. You know what I mean?
yeah.
And it's it's uh it's really awesome to see somebody of your caliber. And one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you today, not only because I think you're a cool ninja, but at the same time, like your professionalism, how you carry yourself, it's a breath of fresh air. You've always here's a little here's a little boring fact for everybody. It's really cool when rappers bring a flash drive and don't hand me their fucking phone and say, "Oh, can you get this?" You always have a flash drive.
Yeah.
So that's something that little stuff like that you pick up on, and you have people that stress you out, like the guy you were just talking about, Logan, SON, whatever you want to call him, who will bring the whole fucking crowd on stage and give you a heart attack without any notice. Even but hey, Logan's my dude. I love him to death. I got it. If I will forever give him shit about that now. But anyway, the whole point is that you definitely can tell. It's so easy to see that you're about your business.
I try to be, because like one thing I've always understood is like you're only you know you could say whatever you want, but it's
Yeah,
only what you deliver. you know what you deliver is going to be what people remember, not what you say. What you could talk a big game, but at the end of the day, like if the results aren't matching your hyperbole, then I mean people are going to see through that shit quick. um
yeah,
People can tell when somebody's half-assing it, I think. um so it's I know it's not enough to be okay. I know it's not enough to be decent or adequate. Like, I try and kill everything that I do. I try and, like, if I'm not impressed by it, it's not good enough.
yeah,
You know what I'm saying? That's the mindset that I've been putting into everything. Like, it needs to impress the fuck out of me. Cause like I've
right,
got a good eye, I've got a good ear. If I make something and I'm like, meh, I fucking delete it.
yeah,
Like for real, I'm notorious for like writing and recording whole hooks and then just like listening to it a couple times and be like, nope, and just fucking deleting the entire thing and starting from
Right.
scratch. If it's not good enough for me, it's not good enough. You know what I'm saying? And I've extended that same self criticism or whatever into any project that I do for anybody else. If it's not good enough for me, like if I wouldn't put Keegan Grimm really fucking big at the top of it, I wouldn't put somebody else's name on it either. Like I won't give somebody something that I wouldn't rock myself.
Yeah, for sure. And there's already been instances where like, because I have to hold myself to that same kind of standard when I'm doing something like this, and I've tried really hard on this show to go through and find not only find guests that I think I could have a good conversation with,
Right.
but present the product in a way that like if I'm not going to watch this show,
Yeah.
why the hell would anybody else take 30 minutes to an hour out of their day to sit down and watch this? And it sucks because I've already gotten a couple different people that have contacted me, and I pretty much had to give them the not right now,
Yeah.
and it's hard because like you said earlier in this part of the show, musicians are not the best at taking criticism. So
Yeah.
I have to kind of, tell them, yeah, I'll put your name on the list. And when we get to that point, and by the way, this isn't a lie. I tell them I put their name on the list. And if it gets to a point where I think we could have a good show, I will contact them again. So
Yeah.
basically I'll just keep going back and checking. But if you're presenting your product and you're 10 years into it, not a beginner. Let's say you're 10 years into your product, right? And you're still pushing out beats that you downloaded from SoundClick, and the producer is, the producer tag is going off every 10, 15, 20 seconds.
Yeah.
I got nothing for you,
Right.
because I can't present that product because I'm trying to promote you, the person, when I'm doing this show. They're going to, whoever the audience member is, if they don't know who you are, they're going to go listen to that product.
Hmm.
And in that product, I stamped by having you on this show.
Hmm.
So therefore, now by association, it looks bad on me. So I can't do that. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And that's very key. You're absolutely right.
And I think a lot of people just really lack the self-reflection I guess it requires
Yeah.
to be critical of your own art. Like if you're going into this to create something, right? I think it's so important to be objective about what you create, because
Yeah.
I've seen so many times where people, put out a product and like, I mean, to really anyone looking at it, you can tell it was like hastily slapped together,
That's
or
right.
it had a whole lot of good enough decisions. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Hmm.
Um, and people don't. I think a lot of people don't adequately self-police themselves. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Uh, and at this on the same on the other side of the same coin, like, you can also be way too overcritical of yourself. I fall into that trap a lot, uh because I won't allow myself to be comfortable with what I create. I won't allow
Yeah.
myself to think like, okay, I know I'm dope at everything, so whatever I whip up is going to be great. No, like I'm looking at everything and looking for any flaw that I can see or hear. And even after I release something, I always like notice something afterwards that I wish I would have changed or seen prior. I'm always critical of
Yeah.
everything that I do. And I think a lot of people lack that self-policing, and there's that there's that overconfidence that a lot of people carry that they might not deserve. You know what I mean?
Right.
And to
Yeah.
to be able to be critical of yourself is a art in its own, I think. Um, because that can certainly, I mean, for me anyway, I know artists can be sensitive, and I can be way overcritical of my own shit. Um,
Yeah.
even with people giving me praise on it, like people have been saying such good things about gospel, and then I'm such an asshole. Like I listen to it and all I can hear is like, okay, I should have changed that. I should have like recorded this a little bit
Right.
differently.
Yeah.
And like every time I listen to it, I see flaws. And I know, that's not great. That's not like, a glass half full type of mentality. But I think that criticism is important to a point, and a lot of
Yeah.
people lack that ability.
When I was in Menace to Sobriety, one of the biggest challenges, and if this gets back to him, I'm comfortable with that. That's fine because he
Mhm.
would probably agree with me. One of the biggest challenges, we probably had a finished record for our last record, Pornographic Punk Rock, that we put out.
Yeah,
That was probably finished a year before it got released, but we had to keep going back because Doc would listen to the song over and over and over, and he'd go, "We need to change this." No, we don't, but okay. Then we go back and he go, oh, I don't like it. So we wasted a day doing this and he didn't even like it to begin with. And then the same thing with the next song and then the next song. And it would get to a point where I'd be like, we need to release this fucking album.
yeah,
We told people at the end of 2018 this was coming. That was 4 years ago. I mean, it wasn't that long, but
yeah,
we have to put this product out. And that was always a big challenge because he was one of the people that he couldn't just, you know, if he heard anything like you just said, he didn't have the ability to go, "Oh, I'm sure it's fine. It's just me."
yeah,
So that was a very tough thing. And coming from a background where you were in a band, you kind of even touched on this a little bit before too. When for us, there were 7 guys total,
yeah,
and you've got 7 people with 7 different personalities who all have to find a way to cohabitat and exist. But at the same time, there's still one guy at the top. I mean, I was his number 2, but at the same time, there's one guy at the top who makes all the decisions.
right.
So we all kind of have to force ourselves to be comfortable with what he wants, or there's the door. And that's the only option. You know what I'm saying? So to deal with all that kind of stuff on top of the uncertainty was just, oh God, it was perfect chaos.
Yeah, yeah, and it's such a fine line too, because like one, you want to be critical of your art so you can put out
Sure.
a,
Yeah.
a good product to your audience. You want to be able to fix flaws, you want to be able to go in and change things, but like at the same time, you don't want perfect to be the enemy of good. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah.
People
Yeah.
people just nitpicking and fine tuning and nitpicking to the point where they're driving themselves crazy when you could already have a cohesive good product. You've got to really gauge what your intentions are with the project, right? Because a lot of us down here in the underground, I mean, when we drop a project, what do we reasonably expect to happen, right?
Right.
I mean, we all want to think like, oh, this is gonna fucking take off, this is gonna hit, but like reasonably, you got to look at how your music is trending, the package you're delivering it in, the
Right.
display of the whole thing, the presentation. Um, and you got to really be critical of yourself, and this is why like record companies have whole fucking marketing teams and things. They can like, okay, they predict first week sales, they fucking based on all this. And like if you're not at the point where you're doing like analytics and like market research to where your audience is, and budgeting a marketing fucking strategy and things like that, if you're just dropping an album to your 500 1,000 fans or whatever, you know don't try and make it a Beyonce record.
Right.
I
Right.
mean, like you have to you have to have an objective outlook on things if you're going to be an artist, especially doing the type of music that we do. um
Right.
you have to be objective, and a lot of people, I think, lack that objectivity and lack that uh ability to see past their own hand. um
Yeah.
it's like, god damn it, you have to hate yourself a little bit to even be successful. Because if you're not
Right.
critical of yourself, like everybody else sure as fuck will be.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Well, as we kind of get towards the end of this, I kind of wanted to ask, is there anything specifically that someone might hear about you, Keagan, the person that you're into, and it would just totally throw them off, and they go, "Wow, really? He's into that?"
Um, nothing really outlandish. I mostly I work and I watch a ton of movies. I watch a ton of movies. I have like
Okay.
I have like I think my collection is up to like 2,800 movies or something like that.
Whoa!
And
And you
like
said you didn't really have anything. Good
and,
Lord.
yeah, it's I mean it started about I don't know 10 years ago. I started just collecting movies because like I don't know, I like being in my house a lot. And so like when I'm here, I want all the entertainment. This is where all my cool shit is.
Yeah.
Why do I need to go anywhere else? Like, so yeah, I've amassed a giant collection of movies, and like
What are
I
some of your
rewatch.
favorites?
Um, I have man, there's so many. Like Snatch, Lock, Stock, like Guy Ritchie flicks. Like those are really fucking fun. Um, I like a lot of like psychological thriller type things, like some horror. Uh, older shit like you ever seen Identity with John Cusack?
Absolutely.
I watch that shit like once a month. I fucking love that movie. Um, Shit like The Cabin in the Woods, like
Hmm.
that's a favorite. Tucker and Dale versus Evil. Like I love a good horror comedy when they do it right, you know.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but that's the thing. Like I watch everything. I watch like the big blockbuster fucking shit. I watch like all the indie horror movies, the A24 stuff. Like I love being able to like fucking suspend my disbelief and just watch a fucking movie. I'm not all critical about
Yeah.
shit. I'm fine if it's Fast or Furious or whatever. I like being entertained.
Yeah.
Let me turn
I
my
have
brain off
okay.
for 2 hours.
So I have a couple of obscure movies that the public doesn't either know about or really enjoy.
Okay.
Um, and I'm not embarrassed to say this. One of my favorite movies of all time, three favorite movies of all time, other than the obviouses, right? I'm just talking about as far as like the obscure and things that aren't popular. The Last Samurai with Tom Cruise, I watch every fucking time it's on. I absolutely love that film. And I know a lot of people shit on it, but it's one of my favorites. Employee of the Month with Dane Cook and
Jane
Jessica
Cook,
Simpson.
Jessica Simpson. I remember that. Yeah.
I watched that. Again, like you said, monthly. That's on my monthly list. And then there's a kung fu flick, and I've got the poster around here somewhere, and it's going to be a backdrop eventually once I'm able to like extend this area, right? I've got the poster sitting right here. It's a Jet Li flick called Fist of Legend, and
Okay.
it is corny, like the not the actual movie itself, but the dubs on it.
Yeah.
What you think stereotypical kung fu English dubs? That's it. I don't care. It
That was
doesn't
like
bother me in the slightest. I watch that constantly.
wasn't that from like the late '90s, somewhere around there?
Yes.
Yeah, I remember that
Yes.
one. I think. Yeah.
I don't know if it was just like I actually remember how I got into that movie, and it wasn't in theaters obviously here in America. I was in 8th grade science class, and there was a class clown. His name was Adolphus, and he had this movie. It was a VHS tape at the time, obviously, and he had it on him for some reason. And he was sitting next to me, and he threw it down. And he goes, "I went by JT at the time. That
Yeah.
used to be my name." And he goes, "JT," slapped it down the table, slid it over to me, and he goes, "Jet Li, exciting action. Watch that. Bring it back." I was like, okay, whatever, right? So I did. I did exactly what he said for some reason. I fell in love with it. I never gave it back. I still have the VHS in my closet here in this room. I never gave it back to him because I loved it that much. And like I said, I've got the poster in here that I bought off a local shop. They just happened to have it. This guy who used to work at a Hollywood Video, ended up going in his stash one day, and I was like, bro, I'll give you $5 for that poster, like hoping like hell he had no idea what it was. And he was like, I was gonna throw it away. Here you go. I'm like, oh, thank God. So yeah, I absolutely love that movie. If you're into that kind of thing and you haven't seen it, it's called Fist of Legend with Jet Li. It's an absolute classic. So okay, big movie fan. That's cool.
Yeah.
What are some of your, if you had, I was going to ask you this in the realm of albums, but since we're talking about movies now, I'm going to switch. You only have 3 movies you can watch the rest of your life. Three.
Okay.
3. What are you going with?
3 movies. Okay. I'm going to go with Snatch, Brad Pitt, the Guy Ritchie thing, and Jason Statham in that. Yeah, that's probably my favorite movie of all time.
It's very good, yes.
It's probably my favorite one. If I had to pick one favorite movie, I think it'd be Snatch. I'd have to throw a comedy in there. One of my favorite comedies ever is kind of obscure. It's got Dax Shepard and Chi McBride and Will. What's the guy from goddamn Arrested Development? It's called Let's Go to Prison, and it's funny as fuck if you've never seen it. It's about some rich guy who goes to prison, and this career criminal kind of sent him there as a vendetta, and then they become friends, and it's a funny fucking movie. You said 3, right?
3. You got one more.
And
this is where I'll cue the Jeopardy music.
So, okay, I'm going to go with the French. I'm going to go with the French horror film High Tension.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, for horror, I think that's my favorite one. That's a crazy one. If you've never seen it, I'd recommend watching the French one instead of the dubbed one. But for a while, like in like the mid 2000s, there was just like so many good horror movies coming out of France. Like High Tension. There's like Ills, like Inside, where someone's like trying to cut a baby out of a pregnant lady. Martyrs. Like France had some crazy ass horror movies there for a minute.
That's pretty wild. Okay. Yeah. Which, by the way, I did want to say one thing about Snatch. When there's, for some reason, when I think of that, well, I do know why, because I watched these 2 movies in tangent, so they're always connected to me. The same time I found Snatch, I found Suicide Kings.
Yeah.
And I feel like both of those 2 movies have the same exact feel to them. And for some reason, if I watch one, I got to watch the other. Suicide Kings, for those who don't know, is with Christopher Walken. Excellent film. So if you enjoy Snatch, you would definitely love Suicide Kings, which I'm sure since you laughed when I said that, you have seen that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great one.
Yes, for sure. For sure. Well, I just wanted to say, bro, like I kind of been alluding to the whole time, I greatly respect the product you put out. I respect you as an artist. I respect the work ethic, like I've been saying throughout this whole thing. It's there's a lot of cats out there who are really starting to rev the engine, and you're one of them. So I just want to say congratulations on all your success. And man, it's always a pleasure seeing you, always a pleasure working with you, and thank you for talking with me today about this. And if you have anything you want to plug, bro, the last couple of minutes is yours.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Gospel just dropped. It's on all the streaming services everywhere. I got hard copies available on my website, KeaganGrimm.com. If anyone needs merchandise made, my company, Night Owl Prints, supplies high quality merchandise for anybody. You know, we'll put whatever on a shirt. We don't care. We're good at it. That's it. That's the commercial. Put it on a shirt, motherfucker. Just send it to us, whatever. Yeah, I'm not great at marketing.
That's
I let the product speak for itself because I'm no good at
it. Well, again, my man, thank you so much for joining me today, my man. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for having me, brother. This was fun. I've been looking forward to it all week. Shout out to you. Yo, I appreciate everything you do, man. Whenever you're running a show, I always know that,
Thank you.
it's going to go smoothly as possible. Uh, so I appreciate all your hard work as well, and I'm sure we'll be seeing each other at camp real soon.
Oh, absolutely. I've already seen the schedule and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, man,
So,
it's gonna be a good time.
absolutely. Thanks, Keagan. I appreciate you, bub.